So I bought a casino, neon lights, free drinks. The house always wins, right? I figured this was the closest thing to a legal money printer on planet Earth. I was mostly right. I was also, on one specific night, very, very wrong. Owning a casino turned out to be less about luck and more about math, volume, and one very expensive lesson about a man named Carey. I will explain who Carey is. It matters more than you'd think. Trust me on this one. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why the house edge guarantees almost nothing on any single night, why gambling might actually be the smaller part of my business, and why a single lucky gambler can quietly wreck an entire quarter. Let's start with the number that made me feel invincible on day one. I assumed the house edge meant I basically couldn't lose. Here's the actual math. Blackjack runs a house edge around 0.5% to 2%. Roulette sits higher, somewhere between 2.5% and 5%. Slot machines usually return 90% to 97% of every dollar back to players. Slots alone can account for a huge share of total gaming revenue on most floors, simply because so many more people play them more often for longer stretches at a time. So on a machine with a 5% edge, I keep $5 out of every $100 wagered. Over time. That phrase, over time, is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence, and I did not appreciate that on day one. The house edge is not a guarantee for tonight. It's a guarantee for thousands and thousands of bets averaged out. On any single given night, the math doesn't care about my mortgage payment. I found this out personally on a Tuesday in a way I will describe shortly. I want you to remember that Tuesday. We're coming back to it. So if the edge only really works at scale, where's the actual reliable money? Here's the twist that reshaped how I think about this entire business. Gambling isn't really my main product anymore. It's the reason people show up in the building. On a lot of major gaming strips, non-gaming revenue, hotels, food, shows, retail now makes up the majority of total income. Some integrated resorts pull 40 to 50% of total revenue from things that have nothing to do with a card or a dice roll. Food and beverage alone often runs profit margins around 25 to 30%. Hotel rooms add another healthy slice on top of that. Retail shops selling designer handbags to people who just won or lost a fortune turn out to be shockingly good business. Nightclubs and pool parties, believe it or not, can rival table games for revenue per square foot on a busy weekend. So somewhere around month 2, I stopped thinking of myself as a casino owner. I started thinking of myself as a hospitality company that happens to have a very loud, very shiny room full of slot machines. Every steakhouse, every headline show, every hotel suite exists to keep a guest in my building just a little bit longer. The longer they stay, the more they spend everywhere else, and the more time the house edge gets to actually do its job. There's a whole science to this called theoretical value, or THEO for short. Casinos estimate how much a player is expected to lose based on their average bet and hours played, then hand back a portion of that as free rooms, meals, and shows. It feels generous. It is mathematically a very precise marketing budget. I once comped a guest a suite worth several $1,000s a night based purely on his average bet size. He thanked me warmly, then proceeded to lose exactly the amount my math predicted he would, almost to the dollar. I redesigned my entire lobby around this idea within the first year. More restaurants near the entrance, a slower, longer walk to the actual gaming floor. All right, numbers aside, let's talk about the night that actually terrified me. There's a special category of gambler in this industry called a whale. We're talking about someone who can comfortably bet hundreds of thousands of dollars on a single hand. Just 3% of players can account for close to a quarter of total revenue on a major gaming strip. In 1997, a legendary high roller named Carey Packer sat down at the MGM Grand and won around $20 million playing blackjack in a single session. That same year, MGM Grand was pulling in around $200 million a quarter in revenue, with quarterly profit somewhere around $30 million. Do that math with me. A $20 million loss on one player against a $30 million quarterly profit is not a rounding error. That is a genuinely bad month wearing a very expensive tuxedo. And Packer wasn't even close to the only story like this. One professional player named Don Johnson negotiated a deal with several casinos that gave him a loss rebate on anything over a certain threshold, calculated per session instead of per trip. He walked away with an estimated $15 million across a few properties, using a deal that basically flipped the house edge in his favor. He wasn't cheating, he was just a better negotiator than the people who approved his contract. That's arguably scarier than a cheater. You can catch a cheater. A good negotiator just quietly outthinks you. I read that story and immediately went and reread every single contract. my own casino had ever signed with a VIP host. The lesson here is uncomfortable. The house edge protects me from the crowd. It does almost nothing to protect me from one very specific, very wealthy individual having a very good night. There's an ugly flip side to this too, the whale who loses catastrophically instead. One infamous player reportedly lost over $100 million in a single year at one property. Casinos genuinely have to think hard about how much of that they actually want to be responsible for hosting, both financially and, frankly, ethically. Responsible gambling programs exist for exactly this reason, and any casino that ignores that side of the business is playing a much riskier game than blackjack. Beyond the whales, there's the sheer cost of even being allowed to open the doors. Gaming licenses involve extensive background checks, enormous compliance costs, and ongoing regulatory audits that never really stop. Building a proper casino resort, hotel towers, gaming floor, restaurants, entertainment venues can run into the billions of dollars before a single chip gets placed on a table. None of that capital cares whether my house edge is doing its job that particular week. I signed my own construction loan with a hand that would not stop shaking. The permitting process alone took years, with public hearings, background checks on every single investor, and enough paperwork to make my old career in insurance look relaxing by comparison. On top of all that, security and surveillance never stop running. Every table, every machine, every hallway is watched constantly, partly to stop cheating and partly because state regulators require it. That's not an optional expense I can trim in a slow quarter, it's the price of keeping the license at all. Lose that license through some compliance failure and the billions of dollars in the building become an extremely expensive empty box. Let's put some real numbers to this using a mid-sized regional casino as our example. I sat down with my finance team for this part. Nobody made a joke about the whale story. I appreciated that. Say my property generates around $300 million a year in total revenue. Gaming, the slots and table games, makes up about 55% of that, roughly $165 million. Non-gaming, hotel, food, entertainment, retail covers the other 45%, around $135 million. Blended overall profit margins in this industry commonly land somewhere around 15 to 20% once everything is accounted for. At 18%, that's about $54 million in profit for a strong, ordinary year. Let's actually sit inside a good year for a second, because those do happen constantly and quietly. Steady foot traffic, the shows sell out, the restaurants turn tables all night. No single whale does anything dramatic. The math just does its slow, boring job like it's supposed to. Those are the years that actually pay for the billion-dollar construction loan. Now let's run a rough version of my actual bad night through the same model. Say one high-value player has a historically good session and walks away up around $8 million in a single visit. That comes directly out of my gaming revenue and my bottom line. Dollar for dollar, no averaging involved yet. My profit for that quarter alone could realistically drop from around $13.5 million down to somewhere closer to $5.5 million. That's a decline of roughly 60% in quarterly profit from one guest having one excellent evening. The math doesn't panic, I did. Somewhere in a back office, a very calm accountant reminded me that the math would eventually smooth out. I did not find this comforting at the time. I find it slightly comforting now. I have personally watched a single hand of blackjack, with the calm detachment of a man watching his own house catch fire in slow motion. So here's my honest advice, from a man who now personally reviews every high roller credit line before it gets approved. If you're buying a casino because you love the lights and the energy, that's a wonderful reason to visit one. It is not on its own a business plan. If you're buying one because you're ready to run a hospitality empire, manage risk on a small number of very wealthy individuals, and treat the house edge as a long-run promise rather than a nightly guarantee, you might actually have what it takes. I still love walking the floor at 2 in the morning, watching the lights, hearing the noise. That part is genuinely electric, and it's why I said yes to this business in the first place. But I stopped pretending that feeling is what keeps the lights on. The steakhouse keeps the lights on. The hotel keeps the lights on. The gaming floor is the show. The hospitality business is the paycheck. I bought a casino thinking I was buying the house edge. What I actually bought was a hotel and entertainment company that occasionally has to sweat out one incredibly good night for one incredibly rich stranger. If you want to see what happens when I buy the next terrifying business idea, subscribe, because there's always the next one.